guys, welcome back to Days of Darkness and welcome to my review of the Blair Witch Project. This one came out in 1999. It is starring Ray Hance, Joshua Leonard, and Michael Williams and was directed by Eduardo Sanchez and Daniel Myrick. Man, oh man. Coming off the AVP series, I was kind of considering what I want the next series to be. You have your predictable choices. You have your Texas Chainsaw Massacres, your Child's Plays. I could do the rest of the Halloween movies and, all that. You could do all that stuff. And don't worry, eventually we will get into each and every one of those. Don't you worry. As well as some other unique titles that I will not give away. But I was looking around and I was like, I kind of want to do something different. I don't want to go the predictable route. And I was looking around, and I remembered my top 25 horror films series that I did, and I remembered that the 25th entry was the Blair Witch Project, and I remember having some conversations with people, and they're like, "That one surprised me." All the other entries, I was like, because I feel like this movie gets a bad rap from people, and I cannot understand why. Now, obviously, hindsight is 2020, and I feel like this movie had a lot going for it at the time. The marketing of this film, the fact that a good amount of people were fooled into thinking that this was real, which, you look back on that and how preposterous the idea is, but that's the thing. That's something that I admire so much about this movie, is that it got people to think that it was legitimately fucking real. You couldn't do that today. There's no way. The internet, how it is, all that shit, script leaks, all that. You just couldn't fucking do that. And that alone makes me admire this movie. I just think that is so fucking cool that you actually fucking got people to buy into that. There's some, I remember there was I don't remember, but because I was born in 97, this came out in 99. I do not have any recollection, but I hear a lot about people who are legitimately upset that it wasn't real, which is kind of fucked up. But people don't like to be fooled, and this movie really, really fooled a lot of people. I love to be fooled. I think if a piece of art of any kind can steer me mentally in a different direction than the reality of it, I think that is I think all that does is compliment the artists, and I have to give props to the actors in this movie. Ray Hance, Joshua Leonard, Michael Williams. My God. You could have the scariest premise of all time. And we've seen this. There have been some pretty great ideas within the horror genre, but if the acting and the performances don't capitalize on that, then the whole thing goes to shit. This movie especially, they were really relying on these guys to pull through and give a good fucking performance, and holy fuck did they come through. I cannot speak highly enough about these three. Legitimately, I think it's three of the best performances in all of horror. And that's, I'm not joking. And people will dog this movie nowadays. And, I sat down to watch this movie on my own, and I was like, it had been years and years since I'd seen it. So I'm like, okay, is this going to hold up? I kind of knew in the back of my mind it would, but I was curious. And goddamn, I'll tell you this. I've seen this movie several times. It had been a long time, but I had seen it a couple times. So I know, spoiler alert, you do not see the Blair Witch at any point in this movie. You don't. There was going to be one little scene where, it's the scene where they're all running through the woods, and you hear Heather go, "Oh my God, what the fuck is that? What the fuck is that?" And she goes up way more octaves than I can, but you get the point. And Josh was supposed to pan the camera over, and they had this extra, wrapped in white gauze and shit. And he was supposed to catch a glimpse of the Blair Witch, and that was your only glimpse the entire movie. I'm really glad we didn't get that. I'm really, really glad he didn't get that shot, and that, you know, you're just, because it makes your mind spin, and it makes you wonder, what the fuck did she see? This movie fucking works. But anyways, but the point is, I had seen this movie, and so several times, and for me to still be like scared that something's gonna jump out at you at certain points, and to be scared of, oh my god, is the witch gonna pop out? These are thoughts that I was legitimately thinking, and I've seen the movie, and I'm well aware that that doesn't happen. But for this movie to pull that reaction out of someone who's seen this several times speaks to the immersive quality that this movie provides, and it's legitimately one of my favorite aspects of the movie. I think the world of this fucking movie. I really do. Now I have to tell the story of someone who hasn't seen it or hadn't seen it, and that is my fiance. And partially, I really wanted to show someone this movie with a modern lens who hasn't seen it before, and I wanted to see someone's reaction. You know, like, because I didn't know. I'm like, is she gonna like this movie? Is she gonna think it's fucking stupid? It's because you never see anything. It's not like you're seeing people get their heads ripped off and shit like that. Nothing like that. But it's just pure suspense. And this movie fucking rattled her. And again, for a movie that people constantly claim, oh, nothing happens, it's not scary, you don't see anything, yada, yada, yada. For this type of movie to pull that reaction out of someone in an age where people are very critical of things, again, speaks to how fucking incredible this movie is. Yeah, dude, I think the fucking world of this movie. Another big impact that this movie had is that, you know, it's not the first found footage movie. A lot of people credit Cannibal Holocaust with that title, but, well, first of all, this is a vastly superior movie in every way. The Blair Witch is just leagues better than that pile of shit. But yeah. But anyways, but the Blair Witch really pioneered the genre and the style. You know, you had never seen anything like this before. And again, the found footage property was another thing that really lent people to believe that this was real. You know, you hear about movies like Texas Chainsaw Massacre and they have that documentary style to them. This was framed as a fucking documentary. And it was framed as legitimate. And the found footage does a lot to lend itself to that theory. Again, like I said, it's been proven, it's not proven. It's just undebatably not real. But I think the world of this movie for being able to pioneer such a unique style. And I also admire this movie because to this day, now there are a lot of found footage films that I think the world of. Some of the better Paranormal Activity movies I think are fucking great. The VHS movies I really enjoy, for better or for worse, because there are definitely some not great ones. But I like the majority of those movies. The Cloverfield I think is cool for what it is. And yeah, you can go on all day. I think there have been a lot of really solid found footage movies. For the solid ones, there have been a lot of cheap... Houses October Built is another one. I can go on all day. There have been plenty. But for every good one, there are a lot of fucking shit ones. There's a lot of filmmakers who just kind of threw people out in the woods or threw people in a house and put some guy in a mask and just called it a fucking day. And I think that's atrocious, and I think that kind of lends people to the idea that found footage movies are just shit. The point I'm trying to make is, still to this day, as many good found footage films as there have been, I don't think anything has touched Blair Witch. I don't think that at all. I think a lot of them have come close, but there is something about that first Blair Witch movie that just, it captures you. Like I said before, the performance is absolutely fucking phenomenal. Absolutely phenomenal. This movie just, it feels fucking real. That's probably the biggest compliment I can give it. It feels legit. It feels fucking real, and I love this movie for that, dude. Wanted to talk about the characters for a second and basically the overall story. So, because I've rambled long enough. So basically, the story here is three student filmmakers are going out into the woods to. I don't know if their intent is to necessarily capture footage of the Blair Witch. I don't think that's their intent at all. Um, but and they get the Blair Witch, but that's not their intention. I think they're just trying to make this documentary. And really, this film centers on Heather. And I think Heather's the most interesting character in this movie. She is so attached to this project. She is so attached and committed to making this thing a success, to where when shit starts going wrong and shit starts going south, she won't stop recording. And the guys are constantly getting on her of, why the fuck are you still recording? Why, Josh has a great line. She's still making movies, man. She's still making movies. And I think it's so interesting. And one of the critiques I hear about a lot of found footage films is, why are they still recording? Like, if some shit was happening like this, you would fucking throw that camera aside and you would run for your life. And there is something, and it's never like deeply explained. We don't get any super big backstory of why she's so passionate about this. But there is something in her that she needs. I mean, she even says it in the movie. She's like, it's all I have left. This is it. Like, I think she has basically come to the terms in a certain point in this movie where she just realizes she's gonna fucking die. Like, there's no fucking way out of this. She's just going to die. And there's a very, very interesting scene in the movie where Josh is recording her, and he says, like, I think I understand why you like this camera so much, and it's not quite reality. You're able to filter reality through this camera, and it makes things not feel how the fuck does he put it? It doesn't make things feel as real as they are, is essentially what he's saying. I think that's one of the most interesting aspects of the movie, and I really, really like that the film that, in my opinion, pioneers found footage as a genre that we know today. I really like that they gave a perfectly good, legitimate reason, because there was a lot of found footage films that just fucking don't. They're recording because we need to have the shit on camera. That's it. But I really like that aspect of the movie. I really like how interwoven that aspect is into the story. I love the fact that the Blair Witch, the way that the Blair Witch stalks these guys and is so deliberate. First of all, I love that we get basically a mini documentary before they actually, we get into the meat of the movie. And the fact that we are interviewing all these locals, which props to them too, because they were another big part of people feeling like this was real, is because they didn't go out and find these sexy Hollywood actors or anything like that. Mid to late 90s, that was big. Everyone had to be hot. They just found these. I'm not calling them ugly or anything, but I'm trying to say that they just look like normal people. There's nothing stand out about them. They're just locals, and I think they do a fantastic job of building the reality of this movie up. I don't know, I really liked them, but I love that we get all of that and all these creepy stories, so that when the Blair Witch really starts fucking with them bad, you start to think about all the shit that those people said, and you're like, oh my fucking god, like, this shit's real. But there's some really standout scenes that involve the Blair Witch herself. most notably for me, I talked about earlier the whole like her running through the woods and what the fuck is that and all that, but that's a really good one. They basically spend the entire night outside of the tent and they're just like hiding, which is fucking terrifying. But the Blair Witch, the part where they're all in the tent and they wake up and you start to hear, and it's the sound design too. I have to give props to the sound design. My God, especially in this scene. They wake up and they're all kind of like looking around, and you start to hear it's super faint. It's super faint at first, and they could have gone the cheesy route and had it like right in your face, but it's super faint children like speaking and crying and laughing and all this different shit, but it's so faint that you're not really sure what the fuck you're hearing. And then all of a sudden it gets a little louder and they're starting to freak out a little more. And then all of a sudden you get these fucking little hands just like scraping all around the tent and them just freaking the fuck out, and they're like scrambling and the camera's going all over the place. And I know some people will kind of complain about this movie giving people motion sickness. That's been a common found footage complaint for a while. I get it. It's never really bothered me personally, but I can understand, especially with scenes like this. But then that leads to them running out and, what the fuck is that and all that. But I love that moment in the movie where it's like, it's just such a build-up. And even before that, when there's, it's a little more subtle. When you're seeing, like, rocks. Like, there's 3 piles of rocks that get built up overnight. And I love also when they wander around the woods, which is a lot of the movie. But they end up coming to this part of the woods there's just these stick men just tied up everywhere. And it's such a great prop design. They could have lent the way of just having the woods be, which the woods are its own villain within the movie. It's not just the Blair Witch, even though the Blair Witch is to blame for all of it. But anyways, they could have just went with just the woods, but they had this scene where they have all these fucking stick men just woven together, and it's so fucking scary. It's just so eerie. And they have the big furry one, which was referred to as Chewbacca on set, which I fucking enjoy quite a bit. But yeah, man, there's something about just all those stickmen, and Heather's recording them, and she can't stop recording them. Like, they're saying, all right, come on, this is fucking too much, we gotta go. And she's like, all right, I'm coming, and she's still, like, just almost entranced by these fucking things, because it's just so abnormal. And, again, it's not like they're seeing dead bodies hung up in the fucking trees or anything like that. It doesn't need that. It doesn't need to be that. It's just these stickmen. And it's they use a lot of really cool, like, pagan imagery in this movie. And obviously the stickman has become a very iconic symbol for the franchise, but that first reveal of those things, fucking phenomenal, man. But as I mentioned before, the Blair Witch is not their only problem. Obviously, I would say that's one of their bigger problems, but also the fact that the Blair Witch has put this curse on them, and that the woods that they are wandering around in are infinite. To me, the idea of that, if I were to be in the woods, you take the Blair Witch aspect out of it. Say you're just in the woods, there's no witch fucking with you or anything like that. Just to be lost in the woods is fucking terrifying. It's nature. And humanity just doesn't survive in the woods today. They just don't. But just the idea of being trapped, and you're not in a cage, you're not tied up, nothing like that. You're just wandering forever until you fucking die. If the Blair Witch doesn't get you, which she does end up getting them, but if the Blair Witch doesn't get you, eventually you're just gonna fucking die anyways. There's plenty of amazing scenes in this movie, but the scene where they're wandering around the woods and they get to the same tree that they saw, I think it was like a day ago. And it's the exact same spot they were at like a day ago. and just the sheer heartbreak and devastation of these people, and they're just so distraught, especially Heather, because the two guys, it immediately dawns on them, and they're like, oh fuck, like they're freaking out. But Heather, who's recording, as she is the majority of the movie, she just sinks, and she's just in denial. She's like, that's not the same tree, that's not the same tree, and she just keeps saying that, and she bursts into tears. That eventually leads to Josh. Another great scene of him recording Heather and basically antagonizing the fuck out of her. And, just recording her and fucking, what's your oh, that's your motivation. There's no one coming for you. There's a witch stalking us. We're going to die out here in the woods. That's your motivation. Yada, and just being such a fucking asshole. But you can't really say that's unwarranted given the situation that they're in. But that's another thing, is that this whole situation, you start to see these three just completely deteriorate. They're losing it. They're losing their fucking minds. I think at this point they had spent 5 or 6 days, something like that, in the woods. And, you have that scene, what's your motivation, yada, yada, just being totally cruel. At one point, Mike, who's kind of the first one who starts to lose it a little bit. Mike's a little more, a little more sensitive to this type of stuff. And again, rightfully so. Like, this is a terrifying situation to be in. But he ends up kicking the fucking map into the river, which, what a fucking asshole. What a fucking dick. Like, why? Why would you do that? I understand why he did it. Just because he's so fucking distraught and he thinks the map is useless and yada, yada, yada. But it's pretty clear early on that if the Blair Witch doesn't kill him, eventually these people are just going to kill each other. It's not like they know each other. They're just a ragtag group of filmmakers who are doing this project. And yeah, man, it's just, I think the way this movie handles its characters, and honestly the way the actors handle themselves and handle their characters, because the way this film is shot, they stuck these three in the woods, kind of let them know where to go and had notes for them, and this is your direction. Again, props to the actors in this regard, because they carry this movie in more ways than one. So I definitely think the world of this in that regard. And we got to talk about Josh's death, man. We'll kind of not wrap it up, but we'll talk about Josh's death and then the ending of this movie. So Josh, he apologizes for how much of a fucking dick he was to Heather, because he was a fucking asshole. Like, he reduced this woman to tears. But, he does apologize, and it seems sincere enough. But then morning comes, and he's gone. Nowhere to be found. It's earlier in the movie, it's kind of noted that he's probably marked in some way, because he's like, there's slime. There's one morning there's slime all over his stuff, just his, no one else's. Just his shit is like completely slimed and shit. It's fucking gross. But that's a big reason why he snaps. And then one of the next mornings, he's just gone. And they're looking for him. They're like, Josh! They're fucking yelling, screaming his name. Nothing for like a full day. And night comes. I might be getting, maybe it was like a night or two. I don't know. But nightfall comes, and they start hearing his screams. To me, there's plenty of disturbing moments in this film. And there's plenty of, like, oh, what the fuck? What the fuck is this? Like, the scene where she's like, oh, what the fuck is that? And you're like thinking, what the fuck did she see? Did she see the witch? What does the witch look like? And your mind just starts to play all these tricks on you. This to me was the biggest, like, mental image horror of this movie, if you want to call it that. But just your mind filling in the blanks for you, basically. And you're like hearing this guy scream his fucking lungs out. But it's so far off in the woods that it's so muted. But you can hear him scream loud. and it's pain. He is in so much fucking pain, but you don't know what's happening to him. It's so far off in the woods, and they're just like yelling and screaming, and they're like, "Where are you? Tell me where you are!" And they're fucking. You can hear these people's hearts breaking because they know in the back of their mind that our friend is getting fucking tortured and killed right now, and there's nothing we can do. There's nothing, we don't even know where he is, you know? But you just hear his voice and it gets louder, and then all of a sudden it just stops. And they're still screaming his name, and they're like, but he's more than likely fucking dead. And then, later on, that next morning when they wake up, they get this bundle of sticks that kind of looks like it's been painted silver a little bit. I don't know if that's what it was, but it looks like it's been spray painted or some shit. I don't know. Point is, they find this bundle of sticks, and she just kind of like grabs it and like throws it away. She's like, I don't even want to fucking fuck with that. I don't give a fuck. No. But there's something about it. And again, this is, and you can definitely fault Heather for a lot of this, because she's the one who's so determined to make this something bigger, and she's the one who wants this to be a success, to where when shit is going wrong and she basically realizes she's gonna die, she just clutches onto this film. She's just she says it's the only thing I have left. So something compels her to go back and look at whatever the fuck is inside this bundle of twigs. And when she opens it up, it's a piece of Josh's jacket. And she opens up the piece of jacket, and it's just this clump of fucking hair and just human teeth, just surrounded by all this fucking blood. Again, they could have went totally corny. They could have had Josh's head on a pike, or they could have had maybe there's like a hand in there or something. All it is just hair and teeth. Fucking disgusting. And she's like, and she films it again. She's like so engrossed in filming everything that, her mind's gone by this point, that she just holds on it and she just films it. And you're like, what the fuck is wrong with this person that you're just holding on this shot of your friend, I guess kind of friend, of this person's like teeth. And she opens it a little more, and you can see like the witch ripped these things out from the fucking root, man. Like, oh my god. But yeah, man. Also, just to let you guys know, no kill of the film section on this, because there's really no, there's kills, but it's nothing. That's not the point of this movie. There's no, all the kills are really served to be, obviously they're terrifying, but really there's nothing that justifies a kill of the film section. But if you put a gun to my head, it would definitely be Josh's. Just hearing his voice, his screams out way off in the woods, and then seeing that. And you don't get any other closure. It's not like you find his body or anything like that. He's just gone. He's gone, and all you have left of him now is a little piece of jacket, teeth, and hair. It's fucked up, man. But anyway, so she washes her hand off in the fucking river. She doesn't even bother to tell Mike, because Mike's losing it too, and she doesn't want to burden him with that, which is admirable, but also kind of fucked up. But whatever. But yeah, man, and then they end up... Well, first of all, I gotta talk about the iconic apology scene. And her... And again, the way they film this movie is they just kind of wander around in the woods, given direction by the directors, and they film the scenes they need to film. But she wanders off, and from all I've heard, check out Good Bad Flicks. Again, has an amazing fucking review of this. And Blair Witch 2, actually, Book of Shadows, which we'll talk about next time. But anyways, she just wanders off, Heather Donahue, and just films this. And, it's out of focus, not out of focus, out of frame, which she didn't intend to do, and was mortified, apparently, about it. Makes it all the more iconic. She's to the point now where she can't even think about framing things properly and all that shit. It's not in her mindset right now, but she films this amazing monologue. And it's just, it's basically her just rambling and saying, like, I'm sorry to Josh's mom, I'm sorry to Mike's mom, I'm sorry to my mom. Uh, I don't remember the thing verbatim because it goes on for quite a while, but I mean, this woman is just, she's cold, she's crying her fucking eyes out, she's basically coming to terms with the fact that this is where it ends for her. This is it. She's basically coming to grips with the fact that she's gonna fucking die. And I don't remember the whole thing, but I do remember. I'm scared to close my eyes. I'm scared to open them. I'm gonna die out here. And she just starts crying her fucking eyes out. She's snotting out of her nose, and eventually they happen upon the house, which is where we get the finale of the movie. Great looking house, great looking horror house. Just so downtrodden and fucking gross. Just an awful place to be. And they hear Josh's voice. They hear his cries, his screams, which kind of makes you think of like, oh my god, the Blair Witch is just literally impersonating Josh, which is scary. It's just, I don't know, that fucking blows your mind too, because you're like, oh, well, then what the fuck isn't this thing capable of? But anyways, so they wander into the house and they hear Josh and they're looking for Josh. He's nowhere in the house. He's just nowhere. But they're looking for him. They run upstairs. You see these like bloody handprints that are put all over the walls and shit. But we end up going down to Michael ends up going down to the basement, and then he gets fucking knocked out by the Blair Witch. And the last shot of this movie to me is so compelling because you hear Heather and you hear her screams, and it's her camera, but the way the camera is moving and it just floats down to the basement. And you hear Heather screaming, Mike, Mike! But like, she's like off in the distance. But so you're like, what the fuck is going on? If you're asking me, I think that last shot is the Blair Witch holding the camera. Maybe it's in her mouth. Maybe she's actually holding it. And just kind of like, because she didn't give a fuck about getting a shot. What the fuck does she care? She's just holding the fucking thing. And, we get down, and it's clear that if this is the Blair Witch, she carried Heather with her. Which kind of makes me wonder, like, well, is this thing just fucking huge? And it's just holding Heather in one hand and holding the camera in the other? And it's just floating down to the basement. The last shot we get is Mike just standing in the fucking corner. And then, Heather, I would assume, gets killed by that point. And that kind of lends itself all the way back to the beginning with the one guy telling the tale about the Burkittsville 7 and how this hermit would kidnap these 7 boys, would take them into the house, make one stand in the corner, he'd kill the other one, then take the other one out of the corner and kill him. And you're like, what the fuck? And that is exactly what happened here to Mike and Heather. And that kind of takes us out of the movie. And I'll never forget, it's my fiance's reaction to that being the ending of the movie. She was fucking... I'm not going to say she was pissed off, but she was like, what the fuck, man? Like, really? But yeah, man. That's the fucking Blair Witch Project, dude. I think the world of this fucking movie. I know I probably rambled a little more than I would have liked, but there's movies that just warrant that reaction from me. And, oh my god, this movie, yeah. Anyways, I'm in great danger of rambling more and more, so we're gonna go ahead and cut it off here. Thank you guys, as always, for stopping by and supporting the channel, supporting me, supporting the dream. I really, really appreciate it. And yeah, man, next time on Days of Darkness, we're going to be reviewing The Blair Witch 2 Book of Shadows. Really curious to see what I think of that movie. I've seen it one time. I remember nothing of it. And all I ever hear is people dog on it. And then recently, people have been kind of coming around. So it's been one of those movies. And I'm curious to see what I think. Because I watched it once when I was like 8. But yeah, man. So thank you guys as always. I'll say it again. Take care of each other. And keep watching horror. All right, guys. Have a good day.